What was most significant in your mind of what you found around vaccines?
Well, as we started pulling through the results, things that concern me were, well, I think, first is that, 24% of the respondents of our survey said that they were not planning on getting we're not planning on getting vaccinated. To me, that's very concerning. Not really surprising, given that there is, hesitancy to get vaccinated sort of generally, and that's grown certainly around the misinformation campaigns around vaccinations generally, the false links to autism and those types of things that have come out lately, or not lately. It's been the last 20 years, those push for those kind of things. And the roles of celebrities like Jenny McCarthy and others who have said, I'm not going to vaccinate my child's autism was caused, but and of course we know that that's not true. But a good false claim is harder to disprove after it's out in the public sphere. So that close to a quarter of Oregon's population says no, we're not going to do that. That's very concerning because we really need to get everybody else vaccinated. That's not in that no category to really try and achieve herd immunity, get to that level of community vaccination to provide for the reopening of society, right? And that's going to be a hard thing to achieve, I think, if we're unable to turn any of those people that right now are saying no. And then there's that second group, which is saying, well, I may do it, I may not, right? They're just in that maybe group, which for us was, from our survey, was 33% of the respondents. I think that's where the state needs to focus a lot of their efforts, because people who are already sort of entrenched and say, no, I'm not going to do it, they may be a little bit harder. But if we can get, that other, that tranche of people and that 33% to move towards getting vaccinated, I think that's really, really important. Because I really feel that it's going to be very, very hard for our country to really be open and safe without having the vaccine in place. Given the fact that the masking and social distancing, while have certainly helped to keep the pandemic from killing even more people, more than 330,000 people have already died in less than a year, and that's certainly concerning. Had we not had those in place, obviously we would have seen a lot more deaths, and those things have certainly limited our ability to operate as a society in a lot of different ways.
I personally was interested in the results on who people should hear a message from on vaccines. What did your research find about who should talk to the maybes?
Right. I think what we found on that front was that our county level public health agencies, that local level public health agencies, are the most trusted information source for the people in that maybe group. And then the Oregon Health Authority, OHA, is also pretty well trusted amongst all the other sources of information that we were looking at. And so, I think utilizing those mechanisms as trusted sources and to be the messengers rather than, say, Governor Brown or President-elect Biden, right?
Or even lower down local news media.
Right. Yeah. So the local news media and NPR or OPB were also amongst the news sources were much more trusted than any of the national newspapers, Wall Street Journal or the New York Times or the Washington Post, those types of things, or USA Today, or any of the network newses or Fox News or MSNBC or CNN. Right. Some of that's not terribly surprising, again, because that's sort of been politicized in a way that your local NBC or CBS station might not have.
What are you projecting will be different about the new life when we, when at least some of us get our vaccines?
Yeah. So this is something, and I can share some links to these other studies that we've been working on. We did back early on in the spring, kind of early spring, late spring, a couple of different white papers around planning for the recovery and kind of thinking about that. What kind of things would help us, beyond the vaccine, which was, primarily focusing on how much the state should be investing in masking and testing and contact tracing. That it helped, I think, helped to guide some of the discussions around those investments, but that never really got fully appreciated. Anyway, I'll share those with you. You can kind of see a little bit more what we're thinking. But I think from the economic perspective, a lot of the sort of the macroeconomic discussions have been around this idea of the recovery from COVID being a K-shaped recovery, where you have diverging sort of recovery pathways. So people who are like myself, who can work from home easily, whose industries are, certainly the university is hit hard. And being in a state with very little funding for public education at the higher education level, we're definitely struggling with students not coming back. But this is not about the university per se, but thinking about different industries and how they recover from something like this, and the people within those industries. So the tech industry, a lot of the white collar jobs that can continue unimpeded, and some of those even doing better than they would, right? So those folks, their recovery looks pretty good. Housing market certainly hasn't taken a hit during the pandemic in ways that we probably would have thought it would have at the beginning. But then you have a lot of jobs that have been hit hard in the service industry. Again, so a lot of the estimates are that, those jobs are going to be hit harder. They're going to take longer to recover. And so what our cities look like, what our communities look like, what businesses remain open and strong and viable in this new normal will likely look different than that set of businesses that were there prior to the start of the pandemic. And trying to think about, and it's clear that our initial thoughts about how long this pandemic was going to last, right? I remember a lot of discussions we had early on where, in the fall, when we can start to open up again, those types of things, which clearly were very misguided.